Hello, students. I'm recording this to help you kind of put everything together that we've been talking about, and so that you can have a correct outline and that you know that your references are correct and all of that kind of stuff. And this is made kind of in as a result of a conversation I just had, and she brought up very, very good questions. So first of all, I'm using this template that you have, and you see that I've used that, and I'm using also the idea of poison ivy rash. So first of all, let's look at Roman numeral 1, which is introduction, and A, which is my attention getter. You see that in my attention getter, I have quite a lengthy little story. So I'm using a narrative story here. My next door neighbor and I are good friends. As single people, we're both responsible for all the work on our houses, both inside and outside. About 9 months out of the year, we spend a lot of time outside in our yards, mowing and gardening and doing some really stupid things, like thinking we can trim trees by climbing them. Or one year we were cleaning out some weeds by her fence row, just normal stuff. We've done it many times. Several times my neighbor has gotten rashes from poison ivy, I guess, but I brag that I'm immune. That is, until about a day after this particular weeding spree, when I found myself scratching under my eye as I was watching TV. All right, now first of all, you notice that I've written it out word for word. I do that because I want to practice it that way. I do not want to rely just on memory, and I also don't want to just go off on some tangent where I don't know what I'm saying. I really wanted to plan it. However, I might not deliver it exactly like that. It may not be exactly like that because I know the story, but I'm going to practice to try and memorize it like that. Attention getter can be any of the techniques that we talked about. I just decided to use a narrative story. Now, it also sort of brings up my credibility because I'm talking about it in my experience. However, you realize I have not already said in here that I had it. So I waited a little bit for my credibility. Now, I'm using my topic relevance. Kentucky has lots of poison ivy growing wild. I'll bet a few of you have had the rash before. I'm relating that to my audience. Well, the next morning I woke up and couldn't open my eyes. There I was, covered in poison ivy. So instead of finishing the story here, I waited and finished it there. I could have moved that right here and then finished the whole story then and established my credibility. But I just thought it kind of flowed better, added a little mystery if I waited. Credibility is just showing why I am a bit of an expert on this field. Then I have my thesis. Poison ivy, although a really pretty plant, can cause an ugly rash. That is what I'm going to prove. And here is my preview. So first, we'll find out what causes the rash. That is my A. Then we'll look at treatments. That is my B. Then we'll figure out how to avoid it. That is my C. Those are your main ideas. Now let's look at the main ideas. I'm using a signpost. First, let's look at what causes the rash. That's my signpost. Now I've stated it. Poison ivy rash is a basic allergic reaction. Now I have to prove it. So I have all of this support underneath to prove it. These do not need to be all full sentences under here. The full sentences have to be at your A's, B's, C's. Those are your main ideas. And up there in your introduction and conclusion. Everything that is support can be phrases, but this, only the stuff that goes in your support, all of the things that we talked about, those different techniques we have for supporting the speech. So we can use things like statistics, we can use definitions, we can use narrative stories, we can use expert testimony and examples. We can use analogies and descriptions and demonstrations and anything visual or audio. So here, I can say, so I've said poison ivy is a basic allergic reaction. Now I'm going to break that down and explain what that is. In the plant of poison ivy plant, there's an oil that's called urushiol. I might want to look that up to make sure I know. And I would cite my source. So actually, as I'm practicing, I would, okay, let me look. So I'd say, First, let's look at what causes the rash. Poison ivy rash is a basic allergic reaction. In fact, in the Journal of Family Practice in 2016, I read an article that told me that the oil in the plant is called urushiol. And what happens is that a human has to come in contact somehow with that oil. However, that contact can be not just touch to touch, but it can be on tools that you've used that have touched it, or animals that have come through it. Like my cat Scratchy might have gotten it on his skin, and then I pet him, and then I have the oil on me. Or even my clothes could have rubbed it. The crazy thing is that the urushiol can be there for a year. So maybe my cat has not shed enough hair, which you would doubt in my house. He has not shed enough hair, and that oil has been on him for a solid year. More likely for me, it's my tools, because when I use them, I don't clean them every time. So that oil could sit there for an entire year. And of course, we've heard, probably most of you have heard, that if someone is burning some poison ivy off of their plants, the oil can even get to you from the burning plant. Interestingly, according to the Gale Encyclopedia of Children's Health, also in 2016, 85 to 90% of people are allergic to the oil. So that means some people get it, some people don't. Well, that decreases with age. So as I get older, I have less of an idea, or less of an what would be the word I'd want, of a chance of getting being allergic to poison ivy, so I won't develop the rash. In fact, only about 50% of adults do have an allergic reaction. However, if you think, well, you're somebody who has never had it, I'm a person who for years did not have allergic reaction. I had a bad reaction as a kid. I thought then I would be growing into an adult who has no reaction. And in fact, according to the Gale Encyclopedia of Children's Health, some children who do have bad reactions can grow into adults with no reaction. Mine just seemed to be latent for several years. Now, also poison ivy is in the same family as poison ivy, poison sumac, and poison oak. And symptoms for that, and really in my life, when I started rehearsing, I took that out. I didn't like having that. It just didn't seem to flow. But then I want to talk about the symptoms. So as I'm still talking about this, I would talk about, well, the symptoms start to show up between an hour and 5 days after exposure. So you get the idea of what I'm doing. I'm getting through this entire body of my speech, and I'm citing my source. So when I get here, now in that same Gale Encyclopedia, the symptoms of poison ivy rash start to show up between 1 and 5 days after exposure. And you first start to see itchiness and swelling, and then you see these papules that are small pimple-like bumps. Well, what you don't know right now is that I have a visual aid. I have a picture where I'm going to show that, so that I have a visual as I explain what papules look like. So what you're seeing here is, in this main idea, everything that is related to that, I'm talking about and supporting here. Because this is about urushiol, all of the little subpoints are just things that break down what the heck are you talking about this oil. That's how that became A, B, C, and D. When I have this, people are allergic, what I want to say about that, all of these things are results of or support how many people are allergic. As I said, I'm going to ditch that one. When I talk about symptoms, these are all talking about symptoms. And so those become subpoints of that. All right, I'm going to pause for a second because I'm going to see if I can advance this. I might have to make a second video. What I found out is I need to make a second video. I get the free version of Screencast-O-Matic. So that should get you through this beginning part. I'm going to go to do the conclusion and stuff next.